welcome to podcast 3 of Who Viewed Your Profile with myself and Adam. Today we're going to be talking about stop looking generic. As you can tell, neither I nor Adam look generic. We're the opposite of generic, but it's also about how you position yourself properly on LinkedIn. So if your profile sounds like everyone else in your industry, then you're not doing it very well. What's the number one tip you should look at to make yourself not look generic, Adam?
Well, yeah, it's a big topic, isn't it? It's why we decided to have an entire episode on it. And let's address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And I'd say that probably, and I'm generalizing, but I'd say 90% of profiles really do present as very generic.
Yeah.
So what's the key things you can do to stand out on that? Obviously, is your banners on your profile. We talked about a whole. If you haven't watched episode 2, it'd be a good time to go back and catch that one. We covered that really, really well. And of course, the professional headline is number one. And I know you have a fantastic process on that. So what's your thoughts on that professional headline and how you really kind of stand out?
You've got 220 characters, Adam, and basically you have to look at what you're going to get searched for as well. So what do you want to be known for? So I always say to people, if you want to be known for having a mohawk, put that on there, but then what do you actually do to make yourself stand out, make someone go, huh, what's that? Don't just say, I work in finance or I work in IT. It's like a billion other people are saying the same thing. So you've actually got to communicate what you actually do and do it succinctly. And also I do believe in changing the headline quite a bit. I believe in changing the banners quite a bit, Adam, because it is advertising to me. That's advertising real estate. It's gold. LinkedIn would charge you a fortune to have the same real estate in terms of banners. So change the banners, change it to communicate your non-genericness and your uniqueness and what you sell, your USP. And the headline's the same thing. Communicate that. But I also think the photograph needs to do the same thing, Adam. And that's why I always go out and basically say, you don't have to, have a t-shirt or wear something different. But if you're wearing suits and you're all wearing, suited and booted kind of thing, and you basically just look at every other lawyer or banker on LinkedIn, you're not standing out. What makes you stand out is look less generic, particularly if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you are an entrepreneur, you want to win clients, for example, or even attract talent. A lot of people don't realize that when someone wants to work for you, the first thing they do is they look at your LinkedIn profile and say, do I want to learn from this person? Will I learn anything from this person? If you come across as very generic, why would someone who has a choice want to work for you?
Yeah, good point. And even just down on that profile image, doesn't always have to be that deer in the headlights, you face the camera. There's a little bit of a subliminal advantage sometimes is if you're actually looking sideways towards your banners because, as we talked about in the earlier episode, people do tend to look at your profile image as the first thing.
Yes.
And if you're looking across at your banners, it naturally guides their.
That's a nice idea. I've never thought about that before. I've got to try that.
Yeah. And the other thing is just to, it doesn't have to be, you can be sort of side on. And in fact, my current image is like that. So, and I agree with you, there's no downside to changing up the image, on a semi-regular basis.
Keep it fresh.
Just refresh it. It's, there's two arguments there that people say, well, they're coming across your profile for the first time. It should always be the same. But I agree with you. I don't mind changing it up a bit every now and then. The one thing I do say is to make sure it's just a very clean image as far as the background. There's nothing in the background. So we were just talking about being on boats in Hong Kong just before the episode. You take an image of yourself and you're on Hong Kong Harbour or whatever. All of a sudden, people are not looking at you. They're looking at, well, what's that in the background, and their concentration gets broken. So
it's worse if they have people in it.
Well, true, true. So change it up, but just make sure it's even if it is a photo, it's a great image that your wife or husband or partner or whatever took. Just put it in and just tidy it up before you.
Yeah, just don't take one with don't use one with your husband or your wife in it, because that just looks bizarre when people 100%. Do that on LinkedIn. It's like, what are you doing putting your family photograph as your LinkedIn photograph? It needs to be concise, not least because you can't actually see it properly on LinkedIn, can you?
That's right. I think another thing as far as that taking away being generic is in the languaging that you use. And so an example of that is, you always see people say something like, I've worked with hundreds of clients or thousands of clients hundreds or thousands are very, very generic. Everybody can say that. when you change that languaging to, you say, I've worked with 137 businesses in the X industry or whatever. Now you're very specific. You're not generic.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that does mean you got to keep going in and updating that, because you should, well, hopefully your number count's going up and up. But I think that one of the biggest differentiators I see is when I read a profile, which is very rare, by the way, Chris, that is very specific in that languaging.
Extremely, yeah.
I'm just immediately right. This person's the real deal. So that's the languaging you use.
I mean, going back to your main point about genericness and kind of people looking bland on LinkedIn, we come across lots of potential clients who say, but I'm an introvert, so I've got imposter syndrome, and I don't want to promote myself too much. I don't want to basically talk about myself too much. Like, what do you say to those people to stop them becoming too bland and blending in with everybody else and looking not generic and actually standing out to achieve their professional objectives?
Yeah, good point. The first thing I say, do you like to eat?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, well, how are you going to get new business or a new job or a higher paying job or whatever it is? So it is tough to for introverts, and you'd be surprised to know I'm actually an introvert.
We've had this conversation before.
So,
I know.
well,
I still can't believe it, Adam. I still can't believe it. We got on so well, and you're an introvert. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you're the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Probably why we're a good
yin and yang.
Yin and yang. But so coming from that introvert sort of point of view, which is my natural tendency, so you can either use it as an excuse, or you can say, okay, well, that's my natural sort of state. However, then I'm going to get out there and I'm going to just I'm not saying you need to get past it or anything, but and where I often see that argument is in video content.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, look, I really don't want to do video content because I'm not comfortable on camera. And I've shared this many times in events, and I was the same. The very first video, and I still have the very first videos I ever put on LinkedIn on my YouTube channel. And I say to people, if you're worried about doing video, go and have a look at this. Look at how rubbish it is. It's terrible. Like, here's all the things I'm doing wrong. But the point is that I actually did it. And so I think one of the most successful campaigns that we ever did with one client who is an accountant, and not to put accountants into a pigeonhole, but they tend to not be highly extrovert personalities. And I said, let's do this. Let's do the video, and in the video say, hey, look, this is my very first video. I'm uncomfortable. I'm not confident with what I'm doing, but hey, I'm just putting myself out there, and here's my message. And the thing went gangbusters, because people just resonated to it. So just you've got to. But
because LinkedIn is seen as a professional network, for example. So when I approach somebody, I do get pushback. So, but I don't want to look like you on LinkedIn, Chris. I don't want to stand out like you. I don't have to have a mohawk and have the tattoos and that kind of thing. So no. I'm not saying you should actually do that. What we're saying is you do need to stand out within your field of expertise. So what is personalized way of doing that for you? And for me, this is dressed like this. For Adam, it's dressed like that. But for you, it's going to be different. And the point is, if you all wear a suit and a tie and you all have the same I work in finance banner and I have no banner, or headline and have no banner, and don't actually come across as interesting or engaging, no one is going to pay any attention to you. And therefore, as you just pointed out, you won't be able to eat, sleep, have a nice place to live in, go on nice holidays and so forth, because no one will employ you. Now, in some industries like finance and law, for example, you can still stand out and be extravagant, be creative without actually compromising. And a lot of people we meet, for example, I meet particularly, they have tattoos like mine, but they cover them up because their clients are corporates. I totally respect that. So their LinkedIn profile, they don't show any tattoos. And that's a polarizing decision by itself. I believe you should. I believe there's nothing wrong with it, but I would say that. But I know that people have said to me, I'm not employing you because you have tattoos. People have actually said that to me. It's like, I've even had people say to me, I'm not employing you because you have a mohawk. It's like, really? I can understand if you said, I'm not employing you because you're a Newcastle United fan, but not because I have a mohawk kind of thing. But everyone has to be comfortable with who they're working with. And vice versa. I want to make sure that we can do a good job for you. So if you're going to come across and say, I just want to be generic, but I still want to win clients, it's like, well, we just can't help you. Because part of what we do is a personalized marketing campaign for you to make sure you're not generic on your profile and your content and your outreach, to make sure you do get clients. Because otherwise you're going to complain that we haven't got you any clients or a new job because we made you look generic just like everybody else. We haven't done our job. I mean, what do you say to people who come across like that, Adam?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. First of all, I always say, look, don't judge a book by its cover. But in their context of how can you sort of stand out? And I'll give you an example with one of our clients. There's been a client for like 8 years or something like that. And she owns a mortgage broking business. And I'm not sure about here in Singapore, but in Australia, they're very franchise based. There's one in every shopping center you go to. There's nothing really different about. They all do exactly the same thing. And so how we positioned her was not to say, hey, I'm a mortgage broker. Her positioning now is that she's the go-to person for female entrepreneurs buying their first investment property.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So now she's got this personal brand. She ended up writing a book about it. She loved it so much. And that doesn't mean to say that you go to her mortgage broking business and they don't do every other term, and that they don't also work with men. They do. But her positioning on LinkedIn is now this very generic, very specific positioning that she's now built a whole personal brand about. So that's the extreme you can go to with it. I'm not saying everybody should do that. I'm just saying it is a good option if you're not that introvert style and you're okay with having a very visible personal brand. Like yourself, like a mohawk. I've seen you like wearing a hat and whatever, but we've discussed it many times. You can go to a Metallica concert and people come up and say, "Oh, you're the LinkedIn guy," just simply because they know you. These are the extremes. We're not saying that you have to be in that state, but you got to stand out a little bit.
So it's a very good point you raised, Adam. We have clients who they come back to us all the time and said, I went to an event in San Francisco or Amsterdam and people said to me, you're the LinkedIn guy. I read your post on LinkedIn. And that's another form of standing out. We made sure their post, for example, and their profile was not generic. So when they walked into a room somewhere in another part of the world, does someone recognize them from their LinkedIn? Whereas had they been just generic and, for example, just reposted company content or had a bland picture and a bland experience, then no one would have actually said, I know you from your LinkedIn. So it is important, especially if you're the CEO of a company or a founder, or you're in sales or marketing of any type, and you want to be recognized around the world or have some kind of authority there, to actually stand out and not be generic. And that goes beyond just like the picture and your headline down to your content too. So it all, I think it's a holistic campaign that you and I both do for our clients to make sure they are not generic.
Yeah, and a good example is like my video content. It's always done shot on the beach. Now, in fairness, I'd live in an area where I'm very close to beaches, or I'm asked to speak at events around the world that are always put on in nice,
that's part of your contract, isn't it? Yeah, I can only be employed in a beach location.
Because my personal brand says so. But the point is now people say, I know it's your video because I see the beach in the background,
correct.
And I'm always wearing
your prominence global branding. Yes.
So one, it's I've got a whole wardrobe full of the same shirts. It makes it really easy. But the reality is that it becomes a recognizable sort of part of my brand is the beach, and the black t-shirt, similar to yours is the Metallica shirt.
Spot on,
and unlike me, you have more than one, but so this is the way. These are the little ways that we go beyond generic in profiles, content. The languaging that we use in our profiles, things like that.
And our best clients, Adam, I don't know about you, but our best clients are niche. So I love it when a client comes up to me and says, oh, I'm really, really niche. You won't be able to help me. I say, I love you because you are niche. I hate people come up to me. I'm a coach and I work for CEOs. Like, I can't help you because that's just too broad. Whereas if you come up to me and say, I help this very specific group of people in this very specific way, in this very specific area, I go, I love you because I can find all your clients on LinkedIn. The problem being too generic is I can't help you, basically. You need to be niche. I actually love niche clients. I would say probably 75% of our clients are niche. They're not generic.
Yeah, I'd say 100%.
Oh, really? Okay,
Client,
cool.
because if they are generic,
Yeah.
we make them niche. So, so that's the difference, though. Is it's much easier when they come to you like that and say, "Oh, I've already got this niche."
Yes,
that's fantastic. It's
Yeah,
super
I
easy
agree.
to work with that. A little bit more work for black marketing or prominence if we have to create their
Yeah.
niche. In the example I shared earlier with the mortgage broking, but that's the value of coming to us, is that we will help you. Yeah, you don't have to overthink it. Our teams will put that together for you.
So what do you think about, so you and I both work for leaders of companies, and sometimes they do not own the company. Now, they have slightly more problem when it comes to changing how they present themselves. What do you say to someone like that who works for a generic company, say in finance or legal, for example, but wants to stand out, but can't push the boundary too much?
Well, first of all, it comes down to whatever's in your contract.
Yes, true.
So, and in that, if you took that another step, we actually have some corporate clients that say, "Oh, we help put our LinkedIn presence together." And the first thing we say is, "Okay, what's in your contract as far as what can your teams do and not do with their LinkedIn profiles?" So there's that. But then, if we are in the example you use, which is a lot of the cases where there is no thing in play, but there is a pressure, social pressure to conform, then look, it creates a challenge. I've had clients who have gone down the path of going very much in a rebel kind of process, I suppose you could call it. And to
don't work there anymore.
But here's the interesting thing, Chris, is often was the case that they got headhunted by someone else who did value that.
Yes.
And the company that they started out with didn't see the value in them having that brand, and therefore lost the talent. Yeah. So if you're the company owner, think about what's the real value that may be in letting your people have some degree of autonomy to express themselves. But also, obviously, there's got to be a degree of sort of company agreed outlines or outcomes or guidelines. That's okay. But it's definitely something that I think that is definitely a grey area as far as a little compete between two different forces. So.
Yeah, but it's a good point about the contract. Everyone should, before doing this, look at their contracts to make sure they are not breaking the contract. Because we've come across clients, for example, who work for corporates, and I say to them, "Are you allowed to post?" And they say, "What's a funny question?" I say, no, we've had clients who say you can only post company content, or you can't post content that's political, for example, because of various obvious reasons. So you have to be quite careful that you have the authority to be able to post personal stuff, or a personal opinion, or a topical opinion, or something that may be slightly contrary to the HR positioning of that particular company, or in fact, you're allowed to post at all. Some companies say you can only post company contract. And if it's in your contract and you sign that, you risk being fired if you don't follow those guidelines. So people do have to be careful. And that's why you and I both prefer working for founders and entrepreneurs, because they don't have such contracts. We like to empower our employees. We like to empower people who basically work for themselves to actually express themselves. But if you work for a company, there are ways of doing it. There are many examples in both Australia and Singapore and across the world on LinkedIn, people who work for big companies who do express themselves in simple ways without actually breaking their contract. And I think that's the key. That's stopping them being generic, so they get promoted, they get headhunted, they get seen by their peers. They're more seen by their employees as well as being people they want to work for and work with.
Yeah, very true. And another thing that should keep in mind is that, and often the companies will say, "We want you to repost the company content." And you should go back to your owners of those companies and tell them that Adam and Chris told you that repurposed content gets no traction, no value. Yeah. There's nothing more generic than just continually reposting company content, let alone any other content. Does nothing for you as your brand, and it actually doesn't do anything for the company themselves. Right. Because it's something like 2% visibility on repurposed content. So there really is no value to the company themselves. Totally. They're going to get much more value out of you sharing your own personal thoughts and things, even if it's to a guideline
Then we're going to talk about content later, Adam. Let's not get too stuck into content. So we'll talk about content later. But thank you for listening and thank you for watching this particular episode. Tune in to our next episode where we'll talk about lots of interesting things about LinkedIn very soon.
And the other thing, Chris,
of course, I forgot, Adam. Go on.
We have upcoming very, very soon our next live event where you can actually send in your own topics that you'd like us to cover, and we'll do that. Just go onto the Who Viewed My Profile podcast website. You'll be able to register for that. Put in your question. We'll see you there.